What up? We're a little over halfway into the first week of Fate of the Vaal League, and the current farm strat meta is starting to come together. Everyone wants more crafting materials and gear upgrades, and Abyss is the front runner as far as league mechanics go. Who wouldn't want better gear, right? So that's what we're going to cover in this video. We'll go over how to make Abyss pump out as much crafting currency and good bases as possible, and also how to not die so much, because Abyss can be really deadly if you're not prepared. Before we jump into it, help us out with that YouTube busy work. Like, subscribe, and hype this video if you're on mobile. These all tell YouTube to show our content to more people, which helps us keep doing this. This patch added an Atlas passive tree for Abyss, Abyss tablets, and rebalanced some of the crafting mechanics for Abyss, but for the most part the crafting is still just as strong as it was in the previous patch. That's a huge deal. Abyss is by far the most effective crafting mechanic in PoE 2 right now. It also synergizes really nicely with essences, both in terms of crafting mechanics and in terms of the farm mechanic. So Abyss isn't just the best crafting mechanic in PoE 2, it's also the best raw currency farming mechanic as well, and it synergizes with several other league mechanics to provide some fun, unique chase aspects. It's your one-stop shop for everything you want out of a league mechanic. As for the basic gameplay loop of Abyss, it's pretty simple. There are green cracks in the ground in maps, you kill the guys that are around the cracks, more guys spawn, you kill those guys too, you get some loot. Simple stuff, right? Mostly, yes, but there is one mechanic that is worth mentioning. Do you ever feel like an Abyss rare just won't die? The Amanumu's Void modifier makes them spawn a deadly looking black swirling cloud that actually deals no damage at all. If you're not in the cloud, you can't deal any damage to the rare, you have to stand in the cloud, and then it will be hittable just like normal. It's annoying, right? But wait, it gets worse. It can obscure actual damage and ground effects, so be very, very careful with monsters that have the Amanumu's Void modifier. Alright, let's talk about some of the basics of setting up to get a really successful Abyss farming strategy going, and the first thing, most important thing, is the map rolling. This has gotten a lot more efficient, a lot simpler in this patch. Really, it just boils down to grab a map, slap it with an alchemy orb, and now it'll have 4 modifiers. You can either run it like this or exalt it up to 5 if you want to be kind of on the safe side of things. Or if you really want to maximize your chances of getting good drops, juicing and getting as many divs as possible, you want to go all the way up to 6. That's going to require a couple of exalted orbs, and that's actually it as far as investment in the map goes. We're talking about less than 3 exalted orbs for like a fully set up map. Now, if you want to go really crazy, you can exalt them and hope that they roll up to tier 16. Neither of these did, but it's not impossible. You can get tier 16 maps, or you can get 8 mod maps. It's technically possible, and it's probably a good idea to do more frequently. We honestly kind of forget to do it from time to time. It could be a little bit of a pain, but yeah, sometimes you can get a 7 or 8 mod map like that one's 7 mods. This one's still 6. If you get a map with bad mods and you corrupt it and it re-rolls some of the mods into something a little bit better, that's also good too. What you're really looking for is a combination of rare monsters and item rarity. Each of the different modifiers that can occur on maps, that can show up on maps, will have different bonuses that come from them. Magic monsters, pack size, rarity, rare monsters, etc. And item rarity is the best, rare monsters is the second best. Those are the 2 things that you really want as much of as possible. Let's corrupt some more maps and just see what we get. Not a tier 16 in sight. Yeah, sometimes it's like that. More tier 14s than tier 16s, what are you gonna do? Now, if you really want to go the expensive route, you can use Omens of Chaotic Rarity. You activate this in your inventory, then use a Chaos Orb on a map before corrupting it, obviously, and that'll guarantee that all the modifiers give rarity. This could be a pretty good setup for maximizing the amount of currency that comes from a map, but, it's a little expensive. Last time we checked, these things were like 25 exalts a piece, though, so it's really more of a high-level juicing approach than something that kind of works with a more alch-and-go strategy. Alright, now let's take a look at tablets, and Abyss modifiers have pretty much the stuff you would expect for prefixes. All the prefixes on tablets are the same. You pretty much want the same things. There's rarity and rare monsters are kind of the 2 most valuable stats. If you can get that on both of your tablet prefixes, that's ideal. You are able to get up to 4 modifiers on your tablets once you've killed Arbiter of Ash, so you want to do that as quickly as you're able to, pretty much as soon as you're in tier 16 or tier 15 maps. That's kind of a high priority, and yeah, really, no matter what type of tablet you're running, you pretty much want those kind of prefix modifiers. rarity. At the very minimum, rarity or rare monsters is going to be ideal as one of your prefixes. If you can get it as both, that is better. You know, there are some other good prefix modifiers as well, like this one, which has map contains an additional essence. That's pretty good for this strategy since we are trying to farm as much crafting currency as possible. Essences are the silver medalist as far as crafting mechanics go, so, you know, if your option is like increase gold or guaranteed to find another essence, essence is gonna come out way ahead. Now, as for suffixes from Abyss tablets, there are a ton of good options here. Increased chance for desecrated currency is good, Abyss pits and maps are twice as likely to have rewards is good. The two real standouts though are map contains an additional Abyss. This is just clearly the best one. You get an extra Abyss, that's a ton of extra guys in each map, and then also map has a chance to contain 4 additional Abysses, 20 to 40%. That is huge. It won't proc on every map, it won't even proc on most maps, but when it does proc, it really adds a ton of extra value into every single map. Now this modifier right here, 1 to 2 additional rare monsters are spawned from Abysses in map, had a bug with it that has been fixed. I'm sure we're going to get some comments from people who haven't watched this far to say Abyss is nerfed, you know, this was changed, and the mechanic is ruined now, and it was definitely nerfed. And also, that's wrong. Abyss is still the best mechanic. This was insanely strong. It was working on every single Abyss, even the ones that were added by some stuff we'll talk about in the Atlas Passive Tree section. The fact that it was nerfed doesn't mean that it's not still a good modifier, it's just not crazy. So all the rest of these modifiers are good, but really the two that stand out as the best are just like increased chance to have 4 extra Abysses or just 1 extra Abyss in every single map. But everything's good and they'll have a nice multiplicative effect with each other. So you do want to run an Abyss tablet in every single map, so that's how you're going to have Abyss in every single map. You want to guarantee that, it's definitely worth doing. Then you kind of have some options for your other 2 tablets, at least 1 other tablet, potentially 2 if you're doing 6 mod maps. And the first tablet would be a precursor tablet. This will add irradiated to the map, basically +1 level, so it'll turn your tier 15 into a tier 16, tier 16 into a tier 17. This increases your chance of getting things like level 20 skill gems, perfect jeweler's orbs, you know, high level currency, high level bases. It's very good to have, but more importantly, it has a bunch of suffix modifiers that are also really good that will like give you some value that you won't be able to get from any other type of tablet. And one of the main ones here is this modifier right here, map has increased chance to contain essences, is just super huge if you're doing any sort of hybrid Abyss and essence farming strategy, which is kind of what we're talking about here, but even if you aren't doing anything with essences in the Atlas Passive Tree at all, this is still worth getting on any tablet that you possibly can, because essences are just really, really good. And here we go. Here's another one. Map has 100% increased chance to contain essences. Great roll on that. Rarity of items. Like, this is a pretty decent tablet. Then the other modifiers, there are a handful of really good ones. This one in particular, map has 1 to 2 additional random modifiers, is awesome. It'll turn your 6 mod maps into 8 mod maps, your 8 mod maps into 10 mod maps. You do need to be on a strong character in order to deal with this. You kind of have to be able to deal with all map modifiers, pretty much all map modifiers in order to handle this, but the juicing potential out of a precursor tablet that has this, and especially with 2 extra modifiers, and then also like rare monsters or rarity of items or effectiveness or 2 of those 3, is enormous. These are so strong that they maybe are just worth selling if we're being real, but there's some real potential there. And then you have the option of a 3rd league mechanic to throw in. You can kind of do any of them. Ritual's the only one that really has no synergy. Expedition has really good synergy with Abyss. That is what we have been doing and kind of recommend the most, and that's because Abyss can overlap with Expedition, and so you will get Abyss-influenced monsters out of Expedition, which then spawns Abyss monsters that are really juiced up and very, very rewarding. They throw lots of desecrated currency at you. This is not an amazing Expedition tablet here. Pack size and rare chests as the 2 prefixes is pretty bad, but you know, it's okay. We'll definitely make some videos about Expedition in the future because that's another really underrated crafting mechanic right now, and it's also just pretty mechanically fun. It also has the advantage of being pretty quick, so you can kind of blast through an Expedition very quickly in like less than half the time it would take to do some breaches, so that's a big advantage. You can get a bunch of logbooks as well, but ultimately what you're really looking for on any of these secondary mechanic tablets, whether it's Expedition or Breach or Delirium, is just like rare monsters, rarity, monster effectiveness, some kind of good prefixes, and then suffixes don't really matter as much on those. for the purposes of juicing Abyss and juicing the drops from monsters throughout the map. Now, Breach is another option if you just want to keep it simple, stupid, and just simply like run through the map, killing as many rare monsters as possible. Breach is great. It is slower than Expedition though, and it doesn't really help that much with crafting. So, you know, it's kind of a favorite of streamers because it gives you more chances at like, oh wow, I got a divine moments, but not as much like actual crafting currency. And it also does take more time to do Breach compared to Expedition. So anyhow, that's our recommendation as far as tablets goes. Abyss tablet, Precursor tablet, and then either Expedition or Breach. Delirium is also an option, and potentially a very juicy option, but it's also very, very dangerous. Abyss and Delirium is probably the most dangerous overlap of mechanics you can have in PoE right now. So there is an Abyss tablet, Unforeseen Consequences. This one is pretty expensive, and essentially what it does is it just makes it so that a map is guaranteed to be overrun by the Abyssal, and what that means is that it has tons and tons and tons of Abysses throughout the map, but also it has this bonus of causing more rare monsters to be spawned from Abysses, just like that modifier that was, as I mentioned previously, nerfed in a hotfix a couple of days ago, and honestly is still a really good suffix modifier on Abyss tablets. It's just not like wildly overtuned, it's just very good. Now, at last check, this was a pretty valuable tablet, but let's see what it's dropped down to since the nerf. Okay, it's dropped down to like 4 divines. So yeah, it's still insanely valuable, and this is actually one that I found. They're not a super common drop, but I mean, honestly, just farming Abyss just for like the raw currency, and this, even if you never used it to craft anything, is not a bad move. But it is also a really good crafting mechanic. One of the approaches that we've been taking is just simply like whenever any sort of decently tiered rare drops and you pick it up and ID it and it looks kind of good, slapping some exalts on it, slapping a little bit of desecrated currency and trying to like craft it up a bit. And you could just see like that's really been paying off, just scrolling through here. Like there's a bunch of just like 1 chaos, 2 chaos, 1 exalt, 2 exalt, but then there's a lot of like 40, 20, couple divines here, a couple divines there. So like lots of value coming from Ange just through cruising through maps, grabbing stuff that drops from Abyss monsters, crafting it with currency that drops from Abyss monsters, and giving it to Ange to sell to people to, you know, fix their builds. All right, now let's go ahead and jump over to talking about the Atlas passive tree here, and we have 3 different Atlas passive tree setups that we've recommended in our Mobalytics link that is in the description of this video, and also our recent video about map rolling in the Atlas passive tree. And so kind of the standard juicing setup is this one that takes all of the map mod effect, it takes like unstable energies and grueling journey to really just juice the amount of like rare monsters and rarity that you get off of map modifier rolls. This is a very good setup for any sort of currency farming, including through Abyss, but you know, anything, Breach, Delirium, whatever. This is going to be really good. Then we have the sort of more interesting like pack size variant where instead of going all in on map mod effect, you're going in on pack size, a magic mod or magic monster pack size, and then unstable energies and grueling journey. These are still very valuable nodes. They're pretty much worth taking in any sort of high level farming strategy. Within the setup that's a little bit more interesting in conjunction with Abyss is an essence heavy setup. So we're taking pretty much every single essence node in the entire tree, even this teeny tiny little spot here, which honestly isn't the strongest node in the entire tree. We're still taking all the tablet effect that we could possibly get. Of course, all of this is really, really good. Still taking grueling journey and unstable energies. That adds a ton of juice into our maps as well. But then what we're really doing is just focusing on getting as many essences as possible in each map, especially if they overlap with Abyss. That's really valuable too. And then we're taking energetic resonance to try and maximize the value of the essences that we get. So this is an approach that really works for like getting as much crafting currency as possible. This is what you want to do. You want essences, you want Abyss, go for this. This is really where it's at. And then like if you're a little bit short on 40 points, some of the stuff like this section over here where you're getting quantity, that's not really as important. Even just some of the map mod juicing, as strong as it is, like that's really something that comes later once you've kind of finished out your whole tree. Okay, and with that being said, let's kind of jump into the Abyss tree here and talk about some of these nodes. So Stir the Swarm is incredible. It just guarantees that every map with an Abyss has an extra Abyss, but then it also gives you a 5% chance when you complete Abysses to overrun a nearby map with the Abyss, essentially giving you that tablet modifier, that unique tablet modifier. just 5% of the time in maps. You'll just get it in a nearby map, so now you have this huge incentive to go immediately run that map as juicy as you possibly can, and it's going to be super rewarding. And then we're able to make all Abyss a lot less intense on our PCs and on our characters' defenses, while still being actually a lot more rewarding by taking Sprawling Rupture. And this is the bonus that was having that unintended, too good bonus with the Abyss Tablet suffix modifier, where what it was doing is each of the abysses that gets scattered throughout the area, because that's what this does, it scatters all your abysses around the map instead of concentrating them in one place. It makes them also spawn more monsters though, so it's not a downside, it's actually just all upside. You get more rare monsters throughout the map, more spread out, so it's like less intense on your PC, less intense on your character's defenses, right? It's all good. What this was doing with that tablet was it was making every single one of the abysses spawn extra rare monsters, so you're just getting like 2 rare monsters in every single abyss in the entire map. And if you could scale that way up with some other tablet modifiers, you could just be adding like dozens and dozens of extra rare monsters in every single map. Bit of a conundrum, bit of a problem. Still obviously very strong, even if you're not using, even if you're playing the game right now where that's been fixed out, it's still very strong. Unholy Influence is the next bonus here, and what this does is it makes it so that all the abyssal monsters have increased chance to have these high value modifiers, abyssal modifiers and Lichborn modifiers, which just makes them like much more powerful, much more deadly, but also much more rewarding. And that's really good. More modifiers on rare monsters is gonna translate into more loot, more crafting currency, more good bases, so just really valuable for getting more stuff. Then you have a choice node here from Out of the Pit, and we can actually just kind of show that off. So you actually have 3 choices here. You can take Lightless Legions, have increased chance for all the abysses to spawn monsters loyal to Amanumu. This does mean more of that Amanumu's Void modifier that is super annoying. And then what it does is it makes it so the abysses spawn 25% increased monsters. Very good bonus, but the downside of fighting Amanumu monsters is very annoying. Black-Blooded Dominance is probably the weakest of these 3. For one, it's increased chance to have Kurgle monsters, so these are the guys that can respawn and start like just sort of launching tons and tons of chaos damage projectiles all around, like a chaos damage sprinkler. Also very annoying, and the bonus for this is increased chance for desecrated currency from abysses, which is good, but it's not currency. That would be insane. It's only the desecrated currency, so it's not nearly as good as it might seem at first glance. And then really the best option is the Ulaman bonus, which Ulaman monsters are probably the most dangerous just in terms of like fighting them straight up, but they are also like the least annoying. They just kill you, right? Instead of forcing you to stand in a void or run away from a respawning chaos damage sprinkler. Like this one is just a guy with a couple of spears that'll stab you to death. And then 25% increased effectiveness of abyssal monsters means more quantity, more XP, more life, so you do have to work a little harder for it, but this is really, really good as well. Now, as for the notes that we're not taking, Dark Bloodlines means a chance for all the monsters to be magic. That's pretty good, but it's not as good as, like, Unholy Influence, for example. And Shadow of Undeath is really only useful if you're doing, like, a Rogue Exile farm strategy, which we're not doing. You can do this as a way to hunt Heart of the Well, which is a really valuable, unique, kind of a gamble jewel, if we're being real. And this could be good, but again, it requires a very specific Rogue Exile setup that is like a super gamble strategy that's not nearly as consistent or really as fun as this, even though Rogue Exiles can be kind of fun. They basically don't drop anything of value ever, so it's just very annoying to like get no reward out of farming for hours at a time in the hopes of getting one big jackpot. Maybe you disagree, that's fine. Abyssal Ire is really only useful for when you're still leveling up the Abyss tree. This is a node that increases your chance to find a boss, and you do need to kill a boss in order to get your 5th and 6th points in the Abyssal tree, so you kind of want your first 2 points to be in Stir the Swarm and your next 2 in Abyssal Ire. That'll help you unlock the rest of the tree. When you kill that boss, you also get the key that you need to kill whatever his name is, Kulamak, and that gets you your 7th and 8th points, so this is like super important for your 4th points to go here, and then you can just spec out of it and never take it again. And then the final node is Close to the Surface. Explicit modifiers on your waystones apply to Abyssal Depths. Abyssal Depths are good, they're worth doing. Getting your mods to apply to them is not a huge deal, and the fact that it's buried super deep in here is like Kind of crazy, actually. It's an interesting idea, and maybe if you're doing very, very, very juiced maps like you are running precursor tablets that give to modifiers, you're running like a couple of those, and you're getting like 10, 12 modifier maps, then maybe this could wind up being good, but it's a pretty big gamble considering you're not getting abyssal depths in every area anyway, so just doesn't really feel worth it for how deep it is into the tree and what it's competing with. The whole left side is insanely good. Also, all the small bonuses give you increased chance to lead to an abyssal depths, which is a great thing. Abyssal depths are super rewarding. They do take a little bit of time, but they are worth doing every single time. They're very rewarding. You can get all kinds of stuff from there. I got a Farrell's Rune of the Chase in like a tier 2 map, Abyssal Depths, like the very first one I did of the league. Got like valuable stuff, got divs from them, gotten plenty of other really good stuff from Abyssal Depths. Also plenty of crafting omens as well from Abyssal Depths, like those are useful on top of everything else. Just getting crafting omens from Abyssal Depths and just Abyss monsters is also another really important aspect of how Abyss is such an incredibly strong crafting mechanic. Alright, that pretty much covers it for Abyss. Now it's question time. It's Christmas cookie season, so what is your favorite kind of cookie? Doesn't have to be Christmas themed, but any cookie can be if you're feeling festive. Let us know in the comments section. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.